have the dubious distinction, 100 murders in 466 days in office. Never before on both sides, Republican, Democrat, have you ever had 100 murders in Manhattan in 466 days. On day one, Alvin Bragg says he was not going to prosecute felonies. They give you all their fake statistics. Well, if you don't arrest nobody, you don't have no statistics.
Mostly just immigration.
Can you talk a little bit more about that? What about immigration have you been paying attention to?
There are thousands and thousands of illegal immigrants coming across the border every day, and the vice president has done minimal work to fix that, based on what I've seen. So I'd like that to change.
What's the next step in terms of Harris? So she wants to let everyone know she's going to tackle inflation. She also wants to let everybody know that she's going to tackle the border. And rumor is she's going to head to the border on Friday. That's going to be interesting if she's going to go to the part of the border wall that President Trump's administration built. This is going to be something that she's not really done before that we could see. And the question she always comes back when you talk about the border, she goes, I'm the only one to prosecute transnational gangs. You know what? She did in 2012 and 2014. But I checked the calendar. It is 2024. The real question to her should be, when you had powerful positions like Senator from California and Vice President of the United States, what did you do? And the answer is, didn't even swing, didn't even miss, didn't care. When you were given the assignment, you punted on it, went one time, in and out in 45 minutes.
There is a problem that's being felt by Americans across the nation. Now, many have felt it for years, and yet we have a presidential candidate that's suddenly taking notice. Now, it's just kind of funny how her tone changes whenever we talk about these issues, isn't it? I mean, despite being extremely supportive of open borders, Kamala Harris is now deciding to switch things up. Even though we have reports that say that illegal immigrants' entry through our borders is now coming down. Now, you can believe that if you want. And you can say that the vice president suddenly remembered that she was the border czar and got to work. I guess it's never too late to do your job, I guess. And guys, before we get started, just want to say thanks so much for hanging out. Thanks for hitting the like button and subscribing. Let's get started.
The U.S. government says arrests of migrants illegally crossing the southern border with Mexico have dropped to the lowest levels in nearly 4 years. The Border Patrol says arrests plummeted by 1/3 in July. This drop comes after the Biden administration imposed sweeping restrictions on asylum for migrants. This change suspends longtime guarantees for anyone who steps into the U.S. to have a right to seek safe haven, and allows border officials to more quickly return migrants to Mexico or their home countries.
But that doesn't seem to be the case here. In fact, border entry is down because they're not going through our borders. They're now being flown by the federal government using our taxpayers. So basically, they're flying over the border into the country. And that's not the worst of it, guys. It is now coming out that these individuals are going back home for whatever reason, and then back to the United States, all paid for by the American people. So they can go and have a vacation wherever they came from, and then they can fly right back here if they wanted to. Now, the only catch is that they're brought back to their home nations in shackles. This is part of the optics that the federal government is pushing. But what is the White House telling us? Illegal border crossings are now at the lowest level since the start of the Biden administration. Now, what's really funny, like not really funny, but what's really funny is that they're likening the numbers to that of Donald Trump's administration, saying that they're just as good at the border when compared to the former president. Y'all buying that crap? And this will be touted by the Harris campaign as we get closer to the presidential election. Now, before we get to these flights, I want to show you former head of the Customs and Border Protection, Mark Morgan. Here he is talking about what's happening during the past few years.
Common sense will tell you that this is on the rise. The past 3.5 years, we've experienced over 10.5 million total nationwide encounters, plus another 2 million known gotaways. And again, common sense will tell you that that's about a 300% increase from the previous administration, from the Trump administration. And when you increase the flow of migrants, making that journey by 300%, guess what you also increase? The abuse and exploitation of those migrants by 300%.
He also talked about the CBP One app that's now being used so much more by illegal immigrants to gain access to the United States. Around the start of 2024, it's estimated that migrants from Mexico alone used the app to make 64.3 million requests. In its first year, it said that it was used tens of millions of times to apply for an appointment to be processed by the U.S. immigration. And like I say, guys, illegal border crossings are down. At this point, we're being told that illegal entries have been cut by at least 50%, which is quite the opposite of what's actually happening with airline companies that are being funded to carry out flights for CBP-1. Back in August 2021, Global X had 2 planes. As of late September this year, that number is now at 18. They have to wonder, how did they grow so quickly, right? And RGV Truth on X posted this video showing illegal immigrants being flown by Global X.
But I will say this, they're not arriving at the border. They're flying them in. And by that, let's go over here and look at Global X. This airline is flying them from San Diego area over to the other spots like Eagle Pass, Del Rio, because they are backed up in Southern California. And notice them into the border towns of Texas. They're transferring them over from California. And everybody's been moving via flight from Southern California.
Now you gotta wonder, guys, what does the Harris-Biden administration think about this? Because as far as we're aware, they're not in favor of human trafficking. Now we're being told by a retired federal air marshal that these people that are in shackles are voluntarily turning themselves in to be sent back to where they came from. They're being mixed with illegal aliens that are being deported, which is now inflating the number. And we're hearing about it just weeks before the 2024 presidential election. Although this has not gone under the radar, as Donald Trump's team is completely aware of CBP-1 app. In a post on X, the former president called out Vice President Kamala Harris. He says, as president, I will immediately end the migrant invasion on America. We will stop all migrant flights, end all illegal entries, terminate the Kamala phone app for smuggling illegals, CBP-1 app, revoke deportation immunity, suspend refugee resettlement, and return Kamala Harris's illegal migrants to their home countries, also known as remigration. I will save our cities and towns in Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and all across America. But we can't just take Trump's word. We need to hear from this administration as well. And here's what Kamala Harris is saying about this issue.
If the American people will have me, I will bring that bill back and I will sign it into law. And we need a comprehensive plan that includes what we need to do to fortify not only our border, but deal with the fact that we also need to create pathways for people to earn citizenship.
Her words, not mine, guys. I read a book a long time ago, and it basically said something that was really powerful and profound to me. And it said something along the lines of, look at your 5 closest friends, and typically your income is an average of your 5 closest friends. Now, with that being said, I was kind of like thinking, okay, well, how do I find people who made way more than me so I could increase my chances of having a higher income? I mean, it only made sense, right? For less than a cup of coffee a day, for less than $1 a day, join a powerful network of people who are ready to change their lives for the better. And I will be putting a limit on this group, so get in while you can. Be positively motivated by others who are also on the same pursuit. So I'm going to leave a link for you guys so you can join me over on the Life Pursuit Network in the description down below this video. So check it out, guys, and let's not be a victim of this great wealth transfer that is taking place right now.
Kamala Harris, you are as fake as press-on nails, and I can see right through you. Let me help you out with something, because maybe somebody must not have told you. On TV and on every interview, giving the same tired answer. So let me just help you out. When you are asked a question, why don't you try answering the question? People are not stupid. We can tell when you're dancing around the issue instead of answering the question. When you're asked, are people better off now or during Donald Trump's presidency? When you're asked about the border or your policies on immigration, answer the question. We don't care about your middle class upbringing. We don't care that your mama had to save up to buy a house. We don't care about your summer job at McDonald's. We don't care about the lawns of the neighborhood that you lived in and how everybody took care of their lawn. That does not matter to me, and it doesn't matter to anybody else. I want you to answer the question. Because if people, my mind is already made up too, Kamala, because I can see right through you and I know that you fake. But for somebody else whose mind is not made up, let me just help you out. Answer the question so that they can decide between you and your opponent.
Harris would be the first woman president, first black woman president, and first Asian president. But I don't vote for who will be the first. I vote for who will win. And for whatever reason, Harris has never been popular. You can count the number of delegates she won in the 2020 primaries on one hand, as long as that hand has no fingers. In 3 years as vice president, she's been quieter than an electric car. And it's not fair that she's not popular. She's intelligent and accomplished, and in fact was put in charge of the border. And look at how, okay, bad example.
So Bill is acknowledging nobody likes her. She has no track record of doing anything. And the few things that she was tasked with, or in this case, the one thing that she was tasked with in the last 3.5 years, she absolutely destroyed, which is the border.
And it is this fact that is pulling down her numbers in the polls. They hid her for way too long, and now everybody's waiting on her words. The problem is that it's been disappointing for many voters, especially independent voters who are still choosing between her and Donald Trump. Now, it's also very evident that mainstream media is shocked that Kamala Harris doesn't have as much support. I'm not shocked, though. I mean, she's been shown to have rallies with thousands of supporters, and yet it's hard to find one organically. Check out what CBS News said about finding supporters for the VP.
We had so much fun, but what was really incredible is in every single restaurant of the people willing to talk to us, we could only find one Harris supporter in every restaurant, and we left no stone unturned. I approached every single person.
I believe that she would have gotten a better number if she notified Harris's team so that they could have bussed in more of a crowd. But it's this unpopularity that's being highlighted at the moment. A Rasmussen survey shows much of the same voters are connecting Harris to the poor performance of President Biden. And it makes sense because she's already in the White House, guys. The numbers show that more than half of voters feel as if Kamala Harris will offer more of the same, with less than 40% seeing her as a fresh start and a new direction. Now, what's really surprising for those at Rasmussen is that more than half of the respondents claim that Donald Trump is the fresh new start that they need. Now, remember guys, this guy has already been in the office. He's already held the White House for 4 years, and yet voters are saying that he is the one who can take this country into a new direction. It doesn't end there, because a whopping 73% of them say that the general conditions in our country is calling for a fresh start and a new direction. Top pollster John McLaughlin, he also confirmed that the race is tight, despite what you and I hear from mainstream media, mainly because what we hear has Harris absolutely leading Trump everywhere. But what they're not telling us is that 60% of voters are worried about the nation going down the wrong track. Of those voters, 78% believe that Kamala Harris will continue this trend. Not looking good for Harris. 74% believe that Trump will instead steer us away from it. Very good news for Trump. Now, I should also note that the numbers show that Kamala Harris is in for a steep drop in the polls, especially as she has no choice but to continue to hold interviews where she's left to answer off the cuff.
Will Pierce. Will, it's good to see you again. I guess my question is, black folks, we got real issues in the country right now. It's not just being soft, but not asking any of the questions that impact us on a day-to-day basis, right?
Lawrence, it's just ridiculous. I think we've seen more hard-hitting questions asked in a high school class president election. They had a chance of one of the first interviews with Kamala Harris because in this election, and they asked softball questions that basically just made it seem like it was more of a campaign event rather than a hard-hitting interview. Yeah,
so what's the impact on black voters? Do you think many of the folks that are living within the community are listening to an interview like this, are taking their talking points, or do you think they're just going to vote differently?
I think they're going to vote differently. What we've been seeing is a major shift, especially amongst young black men. The numbers are showing that they're more shifting now to Donald Trump overall, and this has been going all throughout the whole entire summer. The main reason why the Harris campaign did this interview in the first place is because of those numbers. They were actually thinking about not doing this interview going back to July when President Trump did it, and I think this really was a tipping point when they saw the numbers, when they saw that they're losing this base. They thought, hey, we can get it back with this interview. But I'm sorry, that was just too little, too late.
Now remember guys, this woman stood up for violent rioters burning down the city, and then she bailed them freaking out. In fact, Kamala Harris raised millions to help bail rioters out of jail and supported defunding our police. Kamala Harris also spoke about the black vote in the NABJ interview, and she took a far different approach than President Joe Biden did in 2020. Because if you guys remember, President Joe Biden, he said during the 2020 campaign, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for him or for Trump, then you ain't black. So basically, you're turning in your black card if you happen to vote for Donald Trump. Well, guess I ain't black. Now, of course, that definitely did not go very well for the president, and we're now seeing the impact down the line with the black voters, specifically male black voters really starting to come together under Donald Trump. Harris, however, she said that she expects to have to earn the black vote, particularly black men. The vice president said that it's very important to not operate from the assumption that black men are in anybody's pocket. Yeah, well, that's probably the first smart thing she said in the last 3.5 years. Then again, if she loses, many say that she's going to be Asian again. I guess what I'm really trying to say here, guys, is more than race and identity, what voters are really looking for, they're looking for concrete solutions to their problems. And this NABJ interview with Kamala Harris just did not offer those much. NABJ moderator and political writer Eugene Daniels, he noted that the Democratic presidential nominee has supported Democratic calls on President Joe Biden to create a commission to weigh in on slavery reparations initiative. So the question to Harris was, would she as president take direct actions to create this commission, or does she believe it could happen in Congress? What we got from Kamala Harris was a signature word salad. Now, again, if it was a clear yes or no, she would have just said that. But watch what she does instead.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Sheila Jackson Lee, she was an extraordinary leader who we just recently lost. And she was a friend and a real champion for so many issues. So I feel compelled to say that about her. On the issue of what we need to do going forward, look, first of all, we just need to speak truth about history in spite of the fact that some people would try and erase history and try and teach our children otherwise. We need to speak truth about the generational impact of our history in terms of the generational impact of slavery, the generational impact of redlining, of Jim Crow law. I could go on and on and on. These are facts that have had impact. And we need to speak truth about it. And we need to speak truth about it in a way that is about deriving solutions. And frankly, I think that we, and part of that is studying it to figure out exactly what we need to do. But part of what we can do right now is, for example, what I'm talking about in terms of building an opportunity economy.
So yeah, guys, did you get anything from that? Now, honestly, guys, it was a simple yes or no answer, and we got a resounding non-answer. I feel dumber after listening to her. Now, to quote the VP, these are facts that have impact, and we need to speak truth about it in a way that's about deriving solutions. Harris, as a senator, co-sponsored a bill to authorize the creation of a federal committee to study the history of U.S. slavery and examine possible reparation payments to Black Americans. But now, the Democratic presidential candidate, she's not making any promises. Instead, she said she's not discounting the importance of any executive action, but ultimately Congress, because if you're going to talk about it in any substantial way, there will be hearings, there will be a level of public education and dialogue. And when all else failed, she resorted to throwing mud at Republicans. Now, without naming any names, Kamala Harris mentioned the need to speak truth about so-called leaders who say enslaved people benefited from slavery. So if we vote in Kamala Harris as president, expect more than 10 million illegal immigrants to become U.S. citizens, which means that they get the rights that we have, meaning they can legally vote, among other things, access to Social Security and other benefits. In fact, some of them are even getting perks that many of our own homeless veterans are not getting. Do you guys think that this is fair for any of us? Now, speaking of which, guys, I want you guys to watch another video where I cover the Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis and the mess that she's in right now. Bad luck really seems to be following the prosecutors who went after Donald Trump, and the truth is slowly being revealed. Now, as always, guys, really appreciate you guys being here. Thank you for hitting the like button and subscribing. I'll see y'all next time.